lot of people who feel like the financial system isn't really built with them in mind. So, what inspired you to create Foundation Forward and to start this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, just dealing with financial literacy is something that, obviously is our mission statement since the beginning. But this was an opportunity to talk to people that were just starting out in their financial journey. A lot of people that we talk to are very established entrepreneurs or extremely successful in investing and, already 20, 30 years on their journey. So we haven't really gotten an opportunity to talk to a lot of people that were just starting out, whether they literally just got a credit card or just trying to figure their way through understanding credit and financial literacy and just how the world works very young. So there's a whole demographic of people
Mhm.
that fit in that category that may not be able to fully relate to somebody that is a billionaire, but it's more understandable, more relatable to somebody that's on their level going
Mhm.
through things that they're currently going through. So the opportunity to interview people and to really have those serious conversations with different people from different walks of life was something that we thought made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's one of these topics when we talk about the foundation of financial education. You have investing, you have savings, but credit is a conversation that is kind of taboo
Mhm.
in a lot of households and a lot of communities. And we wanted to have an authentic way to relay that message to the Gen Z population, the Gen Alpha population, and even our millennial demographic. A lot of people have been miseducated, and with miseducation comes fear. And so, if anything we can do to demystify that and show people the importance of what it can do and how you can leverage it. I mean, that's kind of been our mission, like Rashad said. So, partnering with Chase Freedom Rise was important because they saw the vision for it. And they know that there's a trusted brand that we have, and they have a trusted brand. And so, combining those two things together to put out a unique message around credit and the pitfalls and the glories that come with it was something that we were looking forward to do.
Yeah, how did it come about, actually, the collaboration? And it definitely is the right fit. I'm watching this series, actually, and I was watching episode one. But how did you, yeah, come about the idea?
Yeah, I mean, the idea just came about just brainstorming with Mass Appeal, who's our partner in this as well, and Chase and us, and just seeing like different possibilities as far as a new content series outside of what we already currently do. And we've done a variety of different things before, even on different partnerships with different brands. But this was something that was a little unique. We had not done something like this before. So we just thought that this in this moment, in the economy, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of young people that just graduated. There's a lot of young people that's unemployed. There's a lot of young people that's trying to figure their way out. So we really wanted to target more of a younger demographic and do it through more short form stories, not like long form interviews, and then
Mhm.
the actual on site locations and the B roll, and just having more of a something that is a digestible. We just thought that that was a pretty well rounded package when putting together the content.
Yeah, if you watch the series, and again, we're extremely humbled by it. It was like the bridging of the gap, right? So if you watch it, we have coaches from a certain age demographic who had experiences, and you have these newcomers coming into, the real world per se, and having their experiences and lack experiences of a credit. Just
Mhm.
combining those two, it wasn't done previous to this moment, and that's something that we're used to, right? When we talk about financial literacy, financial education, when we started, there weren't too many people that looked like us talking about it. So to be able to bridge that gap, to give knowledge, and hopefully, give people the blueprint or a network of resources to use going forward to help them, it was something that Mass Appeal saw that was important, and obviously Chase saw was important. And obviously, that's been our mission. So, putting those forces together to make something like this was at the forefront of all of our minds.
So with the state of the world, especially for young people just getting their foot in the door in so many ways, we're in the age of, the side hustles and student debt and just rising costs, all over the place. So, how can young people realistically start building their credit and financial stability without the fear of financial anxiety?
Yeah, I think that's something that we talk about
Mm,
throughout the series, and we had this conversation yesterday. I think the first piece when we think about the word fear, it
mhm,
comes from the lack of being educated. And so I think first understanding what credit is, whether that's being around people or adults or using networks, resources such as podcasts, you have
mhm,
books, getting an understanding of what it is. A lot of times we grow up with trauma, and the trauma is passed down from generation to generation. That's something and we're trying to debunk. We always live in the idea of you don't want to owe anybody money, and that's what we think credit is. But getting education around it, hopefully having guardians who have some experience in it, whether for the good or the bad, that can pass down lessons. We talked about having authorized being authorized users, but really understanding it. I think that's
mhm,
one of the pieces that even adults we say, had we known this when we were younger, we would have made better decisions. And so,
mhm.
where there is a problem, we can create a solution, and that's to give them the information so they can start young and use it to their advantage as they get older.
What makes the Chase Freedom Rise card such a great first step for someone just building the credit?
Well, the credit journey starts with, establishing credit. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a great starter car in my opinion, as far as, a lot of time people have a lot of anxiety about credit cards and they're nervous and they don't fully understand it. So, you want to start with limits that are reasonable to you, right? And the education I think is extremely important. One of the reasons why we even did the content series is that any level of new access you should be educated on before you actually take full advantage
Mm-hmm.
of the different services. So credit, it kind of comes with a manual in a sense with this series, because we're telling people, okay, no, you shouldn't use the whole entire limit that you have just because you have the limit, right? You should be paying regularly. What goes into making up a high credit score? So I like to look at it like, a user's manual
Mm-hmm.
that you can actually use the credit card and then watch the series to actually know how to benefit most effectively, and how not to go off the rails and make mistakes with not just that card but just credit cards in general, because a lot of people make mistakes with credit.
Yeah, what's one, I guess, financial mindset that you're hoping that young people walk away from after watching the series?
I think there's a couple, but the most prominent one is the understanding of credit and how it actually
Mm-hmm.
works. People mostly just think that it's a number, and they have no
Yeah.
idea how that number is formulated. But understanding what utilization is, understanding what due dates are, understanding
Mm-hmm.
what accumulating debt is, all these things make up to a score that can affect you in the long term. It can affect whether you'll be able to rent an apartment or buy a home or get a car or even sometimes get a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
And that number stays with you. And there's ways to improve it, and there's ways to make sure that it stays positive. But there's also things that can work against you. And so, understanding exactly how that score works is one of those principles that I think is important for every generation, but definitely this younger generation that's going to be watching the series.
Yeah. What was one thing, I guess, that surprised you the most while filming this?
Just, you never really know as far as the level of education for extremely highly educated people that still don't fully understand what
Mm-hmm.
most people would think would be basic as far as financial literacy. So, you have people that might have master's degree, people that are, doing great things in the world as far as their accomplishments on paper, but they still struggle with the basics of financial literacy. So I think that speaks to a broader problem in the education system, that it's not really taught on an elementary level, on a high school level, and then even on a college level. So you can theoretically go through your whole life and do everything correct and still not know the basic fundamentals of
Mm-hmm.
things like credit. So that's something that's pretty, disturbing, but it I think it's starting to change a little bit from outside resources like ourselves and
Yeah.
even, other areas, but I think we have to just make more of a push in society to kind of really educate people on finances.
Yeah. And I know you guys were talking about just the foundation of, not maxing out your limit and just knowing the due dates and stuff like that. So I guess what advice would you give people, even just to deal with their credit responsibly? Because, especially I guess going to the times now, there's, just seems to be a lot of financial pressure and tight budgets and things like that. So how do you suggest that young adults kind of navigate things so they're using their credit and, the card properly?
I think practice discipline. We always live
Mm,
by this adage that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so if you're disciplined in school, if you're disciplined in home, if you're disciplined in your extracurricular activities, whether that's athletics, that should also transfer to your financial education and your financial responsibilities. And credit cards are one of those ways that you definitely need to be disciplined. And if you are, there are benefits of it. Obviously, your credit limit can increase, but you're also your credit score can increase. And so that would be one thing I would definitely recommend. Right, if you're not disciplined, credit could work against you. But if you are, there's definitely some great benefits that can come your way. And so paying your bills on time, that becomes a discipline. Making sure you're staying under that utilization rate. I know they say 30% in the episodes. We're actually stressing 10% to make sure that
mm.
you have even a buffer there. And so if you practice those habits and credit, down the line, business credit, these things become second nature to you.
If you guys could give your younger self one money tip or a credit card tip, what would it be?
Oh man. I would probably take the advice that I just gave. Just
Yeah.
be disciplined. I was the young student that was in the cafeteria when those credit cards were waiting for me. And I got I got my first credit card. $200 was my limit, and I felt like, hey, I had $200 in cash, and so I definitely maxed it. And then my credit limit went up, and then I maxed it again. But I had to learn, and I think that's what the beauty of this moment is, that the people that are telling the stories and the people that are living, they've been through some of the experiences, and they've lived some of them and came out on the other side.
Mm.
And now we can give back from true testimony. And so I would definitely say credit score is important, but definitely be disciplined.
I love that. And last question, what do you hope that, or what do you think that people should aim for financial freedom?
Financial freedom, I think, just the ability to not have to worry about money. That's something that causes a lot of anxiety and stress and, constant friction when you wake up and you're always worrying about how to pay a bill and, how to not over exceed your credit limit and how to, you know, put food on the table. So it's about finding passive streams of income, investing your money correctly, living below your means so that you're in a more comfortable space.
Mhm. Awesome. I love that. Congratulations again on this series and just how far that you guys have come. It's been a great pleasure to watch you guys grow and really make such impact for so many generations. So shout out to you guys for that.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you for having us.